Deadbolt Roundtable on March 21st. We are live with John Pauly and Josh Bowman. Hopefully soon BaerHalvorson as well. Dave Delapine couldn't make it, so John was more than willing to hop on, and we really appreciate him getting on here last minute. John, why don't you let the audience know who you are if they hadn't seen our podcast last week?
So, John Pauly, founder of Protecht Solutions Partners, security technology consultant. I get to geek out over security tech and tell people about it.
Nice. John, Josh, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well while I get us all situated?
They've been tripping up every teacher I've ever had. All
John,
the J names,
Josh.
they get jumbled up. John, Jeremy, Josh, Jason. Just pick one. I'm Josh Bowman, founder and president of BowmanVision Media, and longtime member of the low volt community. 34 years. I don't want to be that old, but here we are.
And he looks like he's 12.
Yeah, well, the hat helps. And I made sure it was a little crooked. I'm trying to see what the kids do. But then I was texting Bear, who said he'll be here in about 10 minutes. And I caught myself doing like this thing.
Yeah, texting
I'm all the way up here with it,
So it's funny. I made the agenda before John agreed to hop on. But our first topic is kind of following up from our discussion, about what are some good data center perimeter detection things to think about. I don't know if you guys had a chance. I'll take this opportunity right now while we're kind of, waiting for Bear to join. If you're in the live, watching live on LinkedIn or on riverside.fm, welcome. Please ask questions in the chat. We're more than, we're going to be taking questions live. We got, people from different parts of the industry on here. And Chuck's in the chat. Chuck Bowser. He's already saying, what's up?
Oh, what's up, Chuck?
What's up, Chuck? Oh man, that brought me back to high school. So I don't know if you guys thought about it at all. If I sent this agenda, a few days ago, but I know, John, we kind of chatted after our podcast a little bit. What are some of your thoughts on a better avenues for perimeter detection? And I feel like even not just detection, but video. Is that detection too? I always get those two confused.
It can be. I would say it's detection, right? I'll go back and point to what I said last time, which was, the best technology for the wrong use case is the wrong technology, right? And so, what is the use case for your perimeter? Is it sensors on the fence? Is it drones or four-wheel drive robots running around the fence line? I talked with a client about that. Can you utilize things that you've already got in place? So for a lot of again, data centers, they've already got drones out there that they're using to actually fly around and make sure the building, their facilities department uses them to make sure the building is not getting stress fractures or all this other stuff. They do the same thing for the NERC stuff. Well, if I've already got a drone that's flying around, and maybe I put a radar out there, or I put some kind of sensor out there that can tell that drone, hey, I got something that just happened over here. Come this way, right? I'll tell you, I think and this isn't a plug for any camera company, any of that stuff. I think the one that I like the technology the most, and it's only because I watched the demo that was shown, and I wish it had been the demo I'd have been involved with, but it wasn't. And it was thermal radar, and they had spins around. It's a FLIR sensor on top of a camera, spins around 30 times a second. Camera is slew to cue to zoom in. By the way, that technology has been around from the old analog days, a company called Dynapel did it really horribly. Sorry, Dynapel, you're out of business. I did some of that stuff. It was really difficult.
So
This is working really
is that a
good.
360 solution?
It's a 360 solution. So the reason that I, quite honestly, love this product, and by the way, it's got 3 different versions. The longest one will see out 650 meters for vehicles, and it's like 500 meters for people. Obviously, if you're in colder weather, it works better because that temperature difference is significantly more, right? But they were doing a demo, and their guy is walking around the outside of the fence, and he makes these little short jaunts in and out, and of course, it's showing him every time he moves around. And all of a sudden, the camera jumps to the other side of the property line, and it's all integrated with the major folks, right? So they've got this big, wide panoramic view, and somebody's like, "Crap, this thing just went haywire," and somebody's walking down the train tracks, and it bounces between the 2 guys. Well, they're watching this guy over here, and they're like, "Is that your guy?" "No, that's not my guy." And so they're like, "Well, what's this guy doing walking down the train tracks down by the security?" He comes over and proceeds to take bolt cutters and cut the fence while they're doing the test. Of course,
Oh my gosh.
security goes and meets him as he's coming through the fence. And they're sitting there going, it was the perfect, like, I don't know how many they bought, 500 of the units probably. But it was the one test that they literally were like, we got broken into in the middle of the test, and our security team was able to go actually lay hands on the guy as he came through the fence.
Wow.
And they were like, sold. The
Yeah.
technology, that piece of technology is great, but it's, at the end of the day, it's a thermal sensor and a visual camera. It's not laying hands on somebody. You've got to be able to slow them down. It's detecting as far out as you can. But let's say it's detecting, and then they come up and they got to climb the fence, and they got to do, you put as many things in place as you can.
Yeah. So obviously there's the motion detection. So with the radar, and then the camera kind of follows them after that point. I've also seen solutions that are, integrated with the fence, to kind of detect vibrations of being cut. There's also
Or
solutions.
climb them. There's a couple that are vibration sensitive, so that if you start climbing the fence, it'll actually, not only if you just, you touch or you climb, there's vibration for touching, and then there's a sensor for how far up the thing you're climbing as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of technologies out there that, it seems to, it's hard to gather all that information. So that's kind of nice that we can talk about it here, especially with somebody who's, been looking into it. I know.
Well, and I'll throw this other one out to you as well, just because it made sense. What happens when you have a property you need to secure, but you don't have a fence, right? Lots of places we can do fencing. And you should be doing fencing, but what if you need to secure and have a virtual fence? And so, do you deploy something like a microwave, or there's 5 or 6 technologies on the market, but at the end of the day, there are places that, because of aesthetics, because of whatever it is, you can't put a physical barrier up, but you still have to show that detection, that perimeter detection. So, if there's a virtual fence application, there's a couple of technologies out there that I've looked into and used in the past.
Sorry. Is that similar to like a red scan kind of LiDAR, where you just throw a beam down?
That's one of the technologies, right? It's red scan's got one. You've got some microwave applications. You've got some. You can even do some thermal applications. You can do radar applications, but again, you're creating that virtual line. So red scan works really great to do that. Again, what's the budget? What's the cost effective? What makes the right sense, right?
Yeah, that's basically what it really boils down to, is budget. You can throw a lot of, high end, technologies at a solution, but at what cost?
Well, and it's not just the technology costs, right? It's the fact that I got to run conduit. I got to, it's those costs that you have to address. I will say that as part of something we was working on recently, um, we ran into the fact that we may not be able to get power, out to where we need to get to, and it's got to run like a mile away. And one of my team members came up and said, "Hey, there's a powered fiber thing. It's 60 watts of power over fiber." I was like, you know what? That's an interesting application.
Yeah, some Siamese fiber.
It is Siamese fiber, and for the application, it's going to work. Um, Obviously, I'd love to have 120 volts power out there because then I can do more stuff. But at the end of the day, if I can't, we still have to come up with a solution, and that's where we get to scratch our heads and go, okay, let's do it.
Yeah. What about you, Josh? Do you have any industry insight into the, what are some, options out there for detect, specifically, I guess not even specifically for data centers, just in general?
I think in general, definitely broadens things. Data center wise, we have a lot of data centers around here, and I've certainly been in a lot of data centers and very familiar with the inner workings of the data centers and even the duct banks and everything that comes into them from a telecom perspective. That's for you, Chuck. Thanks for watching. Yeah, I mean, none of our data centers around here, John, have fencing. It doesn't matter if it's Amazon or Google, private, anybody's. I mean, they're all...
And that's like a local jurisdiction law, too, if I remember correctly, because I walked one of them that you're talking about, and they're saying, well, you can't put a fence here. There was a fence, and they said, actually, you have to take that fence down.
Well, and we have a lot, if you've been out here, I don't know which part of town you're in, so I'm on the Hilliard-Dublin side on the west side, and we have I've lost track of how many have been built, and they're still building more. And we'll keep it going until Dominic comes back. But yeah, John, I can't think of a data center where I've seen fencing around it. I think they've relied upon both natural and man-made barriers to prevent any type of vehicle ramming or getting vehicles anywhere near it. Obviously, the buildings themselves are quite hardened for various reasons. Immediate perimeter, I obviously see good surveillance and access control and all of that. And then I feel like they're relying on anonymity as their largest defense. If you know what a data center is, you know what you're looking at. And if you don't, I think most people drive right by it. There's nice landscaping. It's all pretty wide open. It almost looks like a park with a big concrete building in the middle of it. And, people drive right by them. I think people know there's a bank of Amazon data centers on one part of town that's in a nice area of business. There might be some white picket fence that kind of blends in with the decor of the neighborhood, has no bearing on security. But is that kind of a new thing that we're seeing more of a push towards, like, more of a secure type of fencing around the facilities? Or
I've seen the ones I've seen have all had fencing, some sort of anti-climb fencing. Maybe locations. We're building one. It's out in the middle of nowhere, right? It's one of the clients I've been working with. But at the same point, I've grown up with a couple of data centers. One was painted, like the entire set of them were painted this royal blue. There was only one company in the world that was doing things royal blue. Everybody knew what that was, and even without having to go, Google it and go, oh, what is that, right? Everybody in the town knew exactly what it was. Everybody that drove through there knew what it was. So I think obviously that there's a number of places that have data centers everywhere, and they just look like every other building. But then you get some of these big campuses that are out there. Especially if they've got a lot of land to cover, unless you end up with a compliance issue, like Dominic said, I think you have to come up with a way to slow people down, and to be able to, and if you can't slow them down, at least know somebody's crossed that barrier, right? somebody has, because then, in traditional security, deter, detect, delay, I've got to be able to get my teams out far enough, fast enough, and but every one of the data centers that I've dealt with, they all have some sort of fence line. Not all of them have a fence line detection.
I'm starting to think Ohio were just a little too trusting. I mean, There's
no fences in Ohio. Yeah,
I used to work in the State of Ohio Computer Center here in Columbus a lot. And this is actually not to argue with what you're saying. I think it's very fascinating that we're seeing such different things. The state's data center is next to a bunch of soccer fields right off of the OSU campus. In fact, it's all campus parking around it. And people are playing Frisbee in the yard. And you can walk right up to it. And you can't get in. It's very secure once you get in the building. In fact, they used to. I don't know if they still do it, but you couldn't use your cell phone indoors. They knocked down the signals. There was no cell phone usage. You're not allowed to take any pictures, all that kind of thing. And then there was a moat around it. Again, just for that physical barrier.
Septet, right?
So that's pretty wild.
I was just talking to somebody the other day. I was just talking to somebody the other day about how we should bring back moats, drawbridges, moats, sharks with lasers.
I'm not opposed to that either. Even dry moats, right? As long as you put
it is dry.
Yeah, you put a walkway over it, right? The bridge over it. But at the same point, you make the easy point go this way. Don't go over the dry moat. And it's, but folks, their eyes, and again, those are septet principles. But your eyes go, oh, my entryway is here. I guess that's where I need to go, right? And they do make these buildings secure and hardened. I would also argue that a lot of the government side of the house, and I don't do a lot with government, but a lot of the government side of the house, like I've dealt with citywide stuff, and they're secured inside the building, but up into the building, you can walk right up to it and put a jackhammer right into it if you need to.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on where that line of that detect is, right? So, some of these are at the fence line, but I guess, especially in more urban areas, it's at the, at the wall, at the door.
The one I actually wasn't a data center. It was a manufacturing facility, but they had a berm that was, you couldn't see the facility from the roadway. But they had like a 10-foot tall berm that made it, obviously here's the property line. And then they had detection technologies inside the berm that if you got above the berm, then they would at least see you. But again, it was a manufacturing facility. How much security do we need? But at the same point, those are trade secrets. Maybe you need a lot. So it's all dependent on the use case, right?
Oh, that's interesting. Let's move on to the next topic. When we were chatting with Bear, I think it was this week or no, last week. He's kind of when I asked him, all these weeks are blending together. I asked him what his idea, of what he would like to see for the future of security. And he was saying, having some kind of AI that lives in between systems, in between your video surveillance and your access control, and something you can be able to just say, we have this new employee, and give them the AI this information, and then it just disperses it into whatever systems it needs to create that user, and spits out a credential or mobile credential or whoever. But what's interesting is I was listening to Josh's 49 Volts podcast with Thrive, and it seems like that's something that they're already kind of doing.
Kind of, and I think, I'd like to get a little more deep dive on what they're doing. It sounds really cool, but it almost sounds like it's more of a single pane of glass platform that kind of replaces your need for those other interfaces. Whereas I think like what Bear's talking about is almost like a middleware that's going to kind of draw in all the capabilities and access credentials and everything in between, privileges between, so that you have kind of a simplified experience to, I think his whole perspective, because he's been talking about this for a while, is that right now we think about specific integrations and APIs and what functionality do I get in one integration versus another. And I think he knows people or has a feeling that we're heading towards a place where we're going to more automate that and kind of create that integration using that middleware, that AI middleware, if that's a proper term.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to happen is an AGI robot is going to be sitting at that desk and will do whatever you would like.
I mean, I pulled up the Panda Express and was pleasantly surprised that I was ordering from AI. I don't know if you have that in your area, but it was
there
very
is
quick.
Bear. Bear's here. I take it
Bear's
back,
here.
Bear. I'm so sorry for what I said. I didn't mean it. That was my bad. I hope we're still friends.
I forgive you.
Thank you. Thank you.
To the point of that middleware AI, y'all familiar with Rex AI, which just acquired by Acre?
Yeah, that's actually what Bear was referencing when we were talking the other day.
Rex. I know, John, you and I roll in Leo Dessa's group, so I did meet Adam Groom there and saw kind of a demo of that, and that thing's amazing. I didn't know that it got acquired by Acre, though. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, so here's my personal feeling on that. I think it's awesome. I also think that now they've been acquired by Acre, I just hope Acre doesn't screw it up.
You're talking about Acre as in like the battery Acre?
Acre access control.
Oh, Acre.
So the little A CRE that owns Phoenix and Open Options and RS2 and every other Mercury-based panel aside from Cornell and Vigilania.
Okay.
And so Rex was part of. Adam had Stratosoft. I think they're winding that down, and their Rex is now fully Acre. And Rex had a feature or has a feature that basically, if it has known APIs and known APIs, so if you put it in the middle and say, XYZ, access control and XYZ VMS or whatever that could be, right? As the more they build out that APIs, it could be HR systems, it could be other ERP systems, whatever. Then they can sit there and go, very quickly add John to this, and this, give him rights over here and all of it, and just let it run. In the demo, it took them about 5 minutes to add somebody to do that. So really cool technology. Again, how does that play in the right, how does Acre take that from here, right? That's going to be the question is it going to play nice, or is it going to be, or are they going to short sight it? I guess that's my 2 cents on it is, if it only plays with access control, I think the system's got the capability to go do things like HR and ERP systems more than just access control and VMS.
Yeah, Charles in the chat on LinkedIn says Acre, as in the company who purchased Open Options and screwed it up.
I probably know who that Charles is.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm just going to revel. I'm going to revel in this. By the way, that I knew Dominic, I knew Bear and Josh through other things, but we've actually never connected, never met. We've been in the same circles and just never actually been in the same room. So
yeah, welcome to Deadbolt Roundtable, where we bring everybody together.
And you had Chuck Bowser too,
and Chuck's in the chat.
You got Chuck, and then my dad just joined. So I mean, you got 2 pretty prominent figures in Bixby in the group now. I don't think Dad's on the live stream; he's on his way back from Cherokee. But yeah, we're getting broadening the horizons here. I love it. I would say, as a former manufacturer, impossible to know, honestly, because if they see an angle for that broad capability, and if that helps them drive sales and revenue and success, then, you know, maybe they'll not handcuff it. But I think, and I do know this company you're talking about. I remember the acquisition recently, and I'm friends with some folks over there at Acre, which is kind of how I saw that in my feed. But yeah, I don't know what their plans are. I don't feel like they really said. I think it was just, you know, there's a lot of the excitement. The acquisition's been made. You know, welcome to the Western world where we build things to be bought. You know, they don't live on their own for very long. So I think true innovation is typically going to have to come at some point from a company that their higher calling is not to be swallowed up by another manufacturer, because, you know, that's how real change is made, in my view, because otherwise it's going to be, and, you know, OpenAI to me seems to be still very much on its own with the Chat GPT, but obviously Microsoft owns a significant stake in that now, and they've completely ruined my Microsoft Office programs because I'm getting really subpar AI in places I don't want it. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a choice or an option. So we're very much, you know, on the path with Microsoft, you know, so I wonder what the future is for that. I mean, somebody's going to have the higher purpose that it is setting out to be that true, and middleware is probably not the right way to put it, but I think it's a close enough way. You know, that's got to be their goal, you know, to dominate in that and change the horizon with that, so that we no longer care what system you're using. We can pull in the information and provide you that consistent dashboard. And I don't want to sell Thrive Logic short, because honestly, everything we talked about was so conceptual, and some of the individual features we didn't really get into a demo in the podcast. I'd really like to see it in action and understand it better. But I feel like
what it sounded pretty cool, and a lot more people should be on board. But
they partner with some cool companies to make Thrive. Those are the Vista and what they're doing, and I'm very optimistic about that. But
Nate Green is a legend around here, and I think it goes beyond just Central Ohio. But you know, I'm not surprised to see him doing well and doing big things. I was pretty excited to have him on and talk about that. But I think that's the real issue. Somebody's going to have to see a bigger revenue opportunity and be funded in such a way that they can stay on that path. And I think the technology's there. I mean, somebody's got to stay on the path. Right now, the game is, and I've been on the right and wrong side of this game. You know, the game is to build it up just enough to get somebody to buy you. Yeah. And we ride out our non-compete. Innovation pretty much stops. You know, we want to blame the purchasing company, and I'm sure they have a new vision, a new set of goals when they do. But part of the problem is, you know, these great innovators aren't anymore. I mean, we're just probably seeing, I think founders are becoming underpaid employees because we're not keeping the company very long. We're not building it up to a sustained profitability. We're using VC funds. We're using institutional investment. We're just trying to sell it off real quick. You know, so somebody's out there got to have the funding and the vision that they really want to build that. And I hope we see that, because I think that technology is there, and I think that could really enhance the user's experience.
For this industry, for all the good and bad, I'll just leave that check for Brazil. I know he's with Fricana. We've talked a couple times. They something a couple years ago for Security Business Magazine, that of all the things that Ricotta has done, they brought VC funding into the security industry. There's been a boom of funding that came in, and good and bad. So there's some things that should never have been funded in should never have made it to the light of day. I feel like that did, and they were sold off quickly, and then they've made their way for the most part away. But then you've got some that they needed that VC funding. They've got really cool tech. They just didn't know how to get it out there. And so I go back to Rex. I think Acre's investment into Rex or purchase of Rex is probably the one way that product will continue to see light of day. I don't know that they were in issues, but now they're part of Acre. They probably have a bigger coffer at their disposal.
But use Verkada as that shining example of what I was just talking about. I mean, there's different opinions out there. They've built a good product, but one thing they have done is, as you said, they brought VC into the industry and shown what is possible. Nobody's bought them. Mm-hmm. They've not made an exit, right? I mean, they have thousands of employees. They continue to grow and build their product. It gets stronger. It's more open. It can be done. And so somebody's going to have that vision and that approach. You look at Verkada, they're 3 football fields past where most people stop and punt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're still going.
And that,
so
that kind of goes to either one, they are really, truly, have a great vision of changing the security industry, or 2, they know that it's worth way more money and they're going to keep going.
It's the latter. Yeah. I think it's the latter, but I was like, do I say it? Don't I? But here's a conversation I have, and I've had it with some very large companies. Are you looking to build something new? Or are you looking to sell? Are you building this new thing because it's your exit out of what you're doing? And I've had some companies that I was very surprised with that said, this is what we think is going to get the sell for us. I've had some that absolutely have said, nope, not going to sell. We're building the best product. Not on our roadmap. I've been really surprised to have that conversation though. And to be honest, to hear people to be honest and say, you know what, we're building to sell. And I've just kind of stepped back and go, okay, because that also changes, when you start looking at tech in our industry and go, is this company going to be around in 5 years? Or if they're going to be around in 5 years, are they going to look the same? Now, I'll caveat that with, there was an IPVM article, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and they said, oh, where are we at in 20 years, or in 10 years? And I looked, and I responded back and I said, okay, let's think 10 years before. GE had an intrusion panel. They owned most of the market. There was a company called Sony that had the #1 camera on the market.
Right.
Bosch hadn't been sold. We look at all these big things that have happened in our industry over the last, not even 10 years, 5 years for some of this stuff. And if you look ahead 10 years, we don't have that kind of crystal ball to say we can do this, right? I mean, up until 2004, you had an iPhone that was created. We had done a lot of innovation. From 2004 till 2022, we innovated faster in those 15 years than we did the last 50 before that. 2022, Josh, to your point, OpenAI comes out in November of 2022. And since then, everybody's heard nothing but generative AI, and some sort of autonomous thing going to happen, and the Terminators are coming, right? That's all we've heard for the last 2 years. Yeah. We've seen more innovation in the last 2 years, especially in the security industry, around what is AI or what is construed as AI. And I don't want to say it's not actual AI, but there is some AI. There's some that's just analytics and Boolean algebra that we're using and calling it AI. But we've done more of that in the last 2 years than we did the last 15 before that. And there's no sign of that slowing down.
No, although I will argue, I think some of the traditional AI that's been around, like the computer vision model out of Stanford, I mean, that is AI. That's been AI. AI was not something to be proud of or talk about or anybody cared about. Or if you use the word AI, somebody would just looked at you funny and said, what are you talking about? What does that have to do with my analytics? So I think there's probably an overcorrection happening because a lot of companies looked at their product and said, well, we've been using AI for a while. We just didn't know that was something that matters. Right. And I had a discussion with somebody else this week, and that'll come out in a couple weeks on another podcast. But I'm a little conflicted when, I hear that that's not really AI. I'm not putting this on you, John, but just saying in general, I hear this a lot. Oh, that's just analytics. That's not AI. Well, it is. But I think what happened is OpenAI set a new idea or benchmark for people for what AI is. And so when they say definitely. That's not AI, I think what they're saying is there's no NLP, there's no LLM or generative aspect to that. So that's not really AI. But I think that we're at the very beginning of what AI can do. And to your point with the level of innovation, this advancement in neural network clusters that gives us our current flavor of AI, coupled with the hardware capability that has so much increased and allowed that compute power. We're fast tracking this AGI now, because what was needed to do that wasn't there 5 years ago, and Boston Dynamics and who knows who else is expected within the next 4 years. Before we elect the next president, we're going to have AGI. And I think when you look at AI and where we're going with this, and you look at AGI, which I personally think is going to save Western civilization, it's going to have its problems, it's going to have its downsides, but, go look at the population numbers by generation, and I'm way ahead of the curve on this, but we're going to have a different kind of conversation in a decade about not nearly enough people. And we've got that, which I think AGI is going to help solve that problem and keep us growing and keep us going. But also, we don't even talk about quantum.
Yeah.
I mean, quantum that's a monstrous development for all of mankind that only certain nations, thank God we're one of them, has access to. And that's over in the corner.
Yeah.
That's not even being talked about or thought about.
That one, I think everybody wants it to stay in the corner, because when you think
there's no more cybersecurity.
That's scary. Exactly. Yeah. When you think cybersecurity, it's gone, it's toast. I think we want to keep it in the corner for right now.
I think cybersecurity is toast with quantum computing, because it's not factoring in that the defense strategy that will come out of quantum computing will also equal. It's just who gets to the flag first. It is a race. It's a point where the defense isn't caught up, and it could wreak enough havoc to blow a hole in our planet. But yeah,
the problem is there's 6 countries that are capable of this, both financially, resource-wise, power-wise. So there's going to be a huge disparity between those countries and the rest of the world.
Well, and so
that to me is a huge risk with it. So sure, yeah, I agree with you. And I had this conversation with Pierre Bourgex. If any of you know him, I think he's very wise on subjects like this. And he is tooting the horn about quantum. He brings it up a lot. But that was my kind of logical layman's question to him, because I don't know anything about quantum except what I see in really cool movies. Right. I don't really understand the technology inside and out. And I mean, that was my question is, okay, well, you get viruses, you get antivirus, you get, I feel like, quantum can defend against quantum. But the more I think about it, I think that'll be the concern, is what does that mean for this planet when you got 6 countries with this technology and the amount of capability, both good and bad, that can come from this, and the rest of the world, what does that mean for them?
Well, when the AI takes over and launches all the nukes at each other, those 6 countries won't be the only ones that get launched at. So they'll go away, and it'll be those third world countries that take over.
Yeah, I heard the Third World War is going to be fought with sticks and stones. So sounds about right.
Josh, to your point, and you're absolutely right. Computer vision is AI. I think where I'm coming from is there's so many. And this is a little bit of a pet peeve. There's so many camera companies in our industry that still call line crossing AI. No, that's not. That's an if-then statement. Did something cross, then do something, right? And so there's a, what level of analytic do you have? Everybody has probably got this at this point, a line crossing analytic at this point. But there's so much of it that when you start having the conversation, how do you build your analytics? The one I used to use all the time was, is it your own homegrown analytics, or are you buying somebody else's? No, we're buying somebody else's. There's a lot of that still going on as well. And so when I look at AI, there's a lot of conversations that have to happen around, is it truly computer vision, or is it just a glorified if-then statement? And if it's that, then please don't call it AI. That was my argument.
I think AI currently is just too broad of a term.
It really
everything's getting slapped with the AI logo, but because it kind of encompasses all of that. So as an industry, I think we just need to dial it down and, maybe have different terms for different kinds of AI.
Well, it's like AI is still getting figured out what AI is. And I feel like open AI set a bar to say that anything less than this probably isn't going to be called AI. Like, we don't still call the abacus a computer, so like at some point we'll get to a point where what we were calling AI today isn't actually what the culture or the industry would know AI to be. Huh?
I took a whole course from Duke because I just wanted to know these kind of answers, back in 22. And that's actually when I learned, as someone who's been a participant working for these camera and VSaaS companies, that's when I learned that really all of the analytics that we're seeing for the most part came out of that Stanford model. It answered a lot of questions for me, because when I'm working for a VSaaS company as a, product and marketing manager, and I'm responsible for what we integrate with and what we use, I'm like, why am I getting like 50 to 100 companies every month reaching out to me about their analytics? And why are they always so much the same? And, going through that course, that's when it first clicked for me. Oh, I mean, that model was made available for the greater good. They're supposed to, hopefully offer feedback and use case and so forth to, feed the kitty and return some of that knowledge for the greater good. But again, I think we're getting to a place where AI is going to be assumed. And it's really, I think people are going to become more educated and understand, like, even from a generative standpoint, there's like 3 different GPT models, transformer models that are available, GPT being one of them. So I think people will become, this, John, you're probably close enough to my age. I feel like we're similar. I came up in the late 90s in IT dealing with Y2K, which was not fake. We fixed it. I just have to keep reminding the kids it wasn't fake. We fixed it.
But sounded like it wasn't that big of a problem to begin with.
It was a huge problem, let me tell you. It actually could have been bad, but we fixed it. And, the thing about it is like back then, I remember it was like computers, are you going to use your computer? Then the internet, are you going to use and there's just a lot of, I don't know. I mean, I think we just take that now for granted. We don't really care. Are you broadband, or you fiber, or you whatever? You're on the internet. What box are you using? You're using a computer. Maybe you're just using your phone. It's a device. It's right now, this thing is so new. I think we're really concerned about classifying. Is that really AI or not? And I think just that's going to be so much a part of pretty much anything electronic that I just think it'll be assumed. And it's just, you're going to read the label and see the details of the ingredients if you care.
Yeah, there's a comment on the LinkedIn live from Quang Trin. Hi, John. All the logic flow will be decided by AI agents. It will change the way customers interact with their systems. Listening to you guys, leaving GTC right now. But yeah, so basically, with who's that? Highland Tech, Highland AI.
Don.
Yeah, doing AI agents.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I think Don's onto something, to say the least. And Josh, if you haven't had him on your podcast,
I have.
It is. I'm glad to see that he made the jump for that from Honeywell to Highland. Obviously, it's a passion project for him, and I think he'll do well.
I do too, and he's really very educated on the subject, but he's also brought in really great people around him. They're very educated, but I think he's a great spokesman for the value of AI and these agents and workers and how this can improve things. I'm proud because I like to see people from within the industry go on to build that next thing that can benefit people in the industry, and they're one of us, and they understand how things go, and they understand how the industry works.
It could end up being kind of what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation with, having that AI agent that lives in between systems. If he builds this out some more, it can be that AI, like we were talking about Rex, building out. So
I think you're absolutely right.
Well, let's move on to the next topic. I think we talked about AI enough. I'm curious, how can we, as a security industry, sell security systems, not based on it just being an alarm to deter, detect, but more of, kind of like what we were talking about, John, with cost savings for janitorial service, heat maps for, it's they're IoT devices that help your company, as far as, hey, this candy's not selling well because, it's in the wrong part of your store. And that's all done with one camera or, fisheye camera. How can we better, advertise that kind of capabilities?
Definitely exists. Is that really the question? Are we not telling the world well enough? Or
I don't think we are.
I don't think we are. I don't think the security directors know how to sell it internal to the other stakeholders. I don't think that. I think the security industry is so blinder focused with it's the security industry. I got to sell cameras and access control instead of looking at, okay, we've got digital twin technologies that can be effective to everything. A camera is an optical IoT sensor, right? You're now hearing people start to call them sensors. They're no longer cameras. A door is a PIM sensor, right? We have optical or we have IoT sensors that collect data, and that data can be utilized across the business. Buzzword alert, business intelligence. We need to be able to tell, we as consultants and integrators and whatnot, need to tell our end users how they can potentially sell this internally. They themselves need to be educated to go, how do I offer this internally to HR, marketing, facilities, IT, right? Maybe I'm not, part of those departments today, but we're collecting a ton of data that typically gets used absolutely nothing with, that can be used to affect change in the organization. And oh, by the way, those stakeholders, when it does go well, one of the things you're finding is that security is actually selling the service, quote unquote, internally between the stakeholders. And so all of a sudden, security isn't just a ROI suck, right? The insurance policy that we hope that we don't ever have to use. It's now it's getting a seat at the table and saying, no, we're bringing the data to you that you can do stuff with. That's why I'm trying to leverage any of the clients I'm working with. How do we build your business intelligence piece? Not just let me secure your property. Yes, got to do that. That's non-negotiable. But we've got things that we can do here that can solve other business organization problems. Have you thought about that yet? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. We didn't even think about that. That was we're focused on this one thing instead of the whole organization. And if you can come in and be the whole organization, you come in looking like a rock star.
I think you said it well. Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Sorry.
No,
all right. So going back to the thing that I said, Dominic, with you on the podcast, I look at the IoT piece of it, and I gave the example of DFW Airport. They figured out with all the different sensors to put into the bathroom that it costs them money to put it in, but on average they save $80,000 a year per bathroom in not having to go there. If there's things huge that we can utilize from security to do that, and it's an IP connected device. Yes, it says IoT, but it doesn't have to be an IT device. It could be a security device doing this. Can we create that ROI? Or I don't say if it was ROI, but can we create that savings, that secondary or tertiary savings that generates money back in? So again, it is business intelligence, but it's so much more.
Yeah,
Charles, we saved $80,000 in bathroom costs when our oldest went to college a couple of years ago. So
nice. There's a good dad joke. Thanks, Josh.
No,
Charles.
John's right though, 100%, because it's like turning that security into an efficiency piece, because you're now being able to use that data that you're talking about and draw it into not just your business intelligence, but almost your business automation. That scoping, such a broader piece that will make it even easier to sell security. Like we're all having a problem anyway. So it's like you can put that in, and how many integrators I don't know any that are boots on the ground that are looking or designing or engineering something for whoever, a university or a small business, going, hey, have you thought about how this might affect, or have you thought about how the data that we're collecting, could it be used with this system that you've already got in place?
Well, there's one vertical where they do successfully, I feel, and that's retail. Those that focus in those environments, I think they've done a good job with that, and maybe they could go farther, and maybe it's low-hanging fruit because of the cash register and some of the other things that maybe really are security related. But
yeah, and I mean, I've seen that, but you don't see a broad span. Like they've created the infrastructure for it, but I still go through the checkout line at Target, and there's not cameras above that. They got it at Hy-Vee down the street, but at the Walmart that I'm at, sometimes they're using cameras, sometimes they're not. And especially in retail that gets outside of those big box stores, I don't see it. So the piece is there for sure. But like the question becomes, how do we educate for it to start to become some of the sales pitch from the people that are actually putting the cameras up? I don't know.
I think it's going to depend on the type of business that you're selling to, because I was able to do that a long time ago with a system that no longer exists, but was one of the early analytic-based, browser-based platforms, and it had pretty good analytics for the time. And we actually were able to use Dwell to actually catch the fact that they had a large number of forklift drivers that were making big stacks of boxes or pallets, and then they would go in between and sleep, and they're actually able to detect and track and document all of that. And, there was an ROI on that specifically, but I think when you say BaerHal, I think it is very vertical specific. If you're a hospital, or if you're, there's so many different metrics, I think, that you would look at. You disagree, John?
I don't disagree that it's no to that. Yes, I'm going to disagree on how you sell it, right?
Mm-hmm.
How this is going to take a left turn, and I'm not trying to make it go. How many technicians do we have in the industry, right? Most of the business development, not enough, right? And I've been there, right? Most of the business development guys are like, only sell to this person. I remember going into one hospital, and I actually got yelled at because I talked to the guard and was working with the guard, and they were like, no, we're only talking to this one person. I said, did you notice that every time you asked her a question, she looked at the guard and said, what do you think? I talked to the guard, but I got admonished, and I won't say admonished in a harsh way, but we had a gentle discussion about how that wasn't effective. And my statement was, that guard is who's selling her. No, by the way, that guard's going to go somewhere else and become security director and do something else. He's going to remember that conversation, hopefully.
Yeah.
We're not to the point of what I was, it wasn't an argument with what you're saying. We don't give our technicians the keys to go sell. Guess what? They're the face of your company. If your technicians aren't selling, it's because you've held them back, or they don't know about the product. They should be able to go in and have a conversation, Bear, to your point, and say, hey, do you know that this tech can do X, Y, and Z? And that security director go, no, I've never heard of that. Holy mackerel. How does it do that? Hold on, let me get you the account manager. He can tell you, he can walk you through the rest of it. But that tech is putting his hands on it every day. He should be able to go in and say, we can do more with this. And I'm sure, Josh, you've had a little bit of that experience as well, and to go, why aren't we empowering our techs to do more than what we are?
Because we need to treat them better, is what I see in many organizations. We treat them like they don't matter as much. They're not expert enough. They're an afterthought. I think in too many organizations.
That whole statement, what if we train them and they leave? Well, guess what? What if you train them and they stay? Give them training. Let them, if they don't know how to use a multimeter, teach them. If you can't send them out for training, fine. Train them organically. Have somebody walk through, help them, learn them, teach them. Go into a site, give them the ability to go sell this. Feel free to, and maybe even, hey, you know what? If you go in and start the conversation, and the account manager, the business development, or whatever you want to call that guy, that's doing the sale and it comes about, something, you get 10% of that, right? We'll put extra money in the back of your pocket for making that sale. Guess what? You're going to have a lot of people say, you know what? I can sell this stuff. There's no incentive to do that today that I see. And I think that's how we start changing this conversation, is the people that are dealing with the security directors every day, not the guy that takes them out to lunch once every 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
They're the guys that challenge the security director and say, we can do more. Have you thought about this?
Yeah.
The technician is your best sales guy.
And the problem with that sales guy that is taking the client out to lunch every month is he doesn't know the ins and out of the system. He's just selling the general idea of security, and he doesn't know, what it can actually do.
Yeah. And I think, it is kind of a double-edged sword, because with where our technicians are at right now, I feel like a layer that's missing within our industry is the leadership above technicians that isn't strong enough to power them. So we're kind of dealing with a snotty-nosed stepson, and he's still like showing up late, and he's like murmuring curse words about me behind his back. So like it's this contentious relationship between leadership and the technician that's already there. Definitely has it, because if I pour my leadership into it, it's a complicated topic.
But you also go ahead.
Yeah, but I do think, to your point of like the technology being able to integrate in multiple ways in multiple verticals, it's a little difficult there, because you're getting a broad sphere and it's requiring so much more education to general knowledge that like the technician that knows how to put in access control and CCTV really well has no idea how retail systems run. And if we teach him that, we also have to teach him how nurse call systems run, and we also have to teach him how this runs. And so it's hard to get over that hurdle for the integration to kind of start flowing in at a faster rate,
We also need to make sure that leadership in these low voltage industries like security is truly leadership and not just trying to protect their own job. Because I can tell you there's definitely too many people that part of the reason that they treat the techs lowly and they don't invest in them and they don't mentor them and they don't try to train them to be the next person to replace them is because they don't want to be replaced. They're thinking about their own job and their own job security, and they see these techs as a threat. And I've seen, and I'm not saying it's everybody, but I have worked in so many different integrators and installers where I have seen PMs and ops managers treating really good techs like crap. Like they just have it in for some of these folks because they see them as a threat to their own jobs. We got to, if you're going to be called a leader, be a leader and train people, invest in them, and that will pay you back. I've been in a time in need not too long ago, and one of those people that I did that with and pulled out of the field, now he's a GM in a very large company of a whole region, and said, yeah, I got a project for you that you can, help me out with. It's just, it pays you back to treat people well. It pays you back to invest in people. And if you're going to be selfish and you're only going to think about yourself and you're going to try and suppress others, you're going to feel, you're not going to get as much out of your career as well. So it's never one thing. I think it's all these things. And I think it probably depends on where you are and there's different dynamics, but I think that's an important one too.
And at the end of the day, it's like you're pouring back into the industry. So like John said, like if you're going to train them up and they're going to leave, well, still good on you. You help the industry because you train somebody to get the next guy doing still good work so that your community is still safe,
Yeah, I can tell you that almost every person that I trained, the downside to it was the industry didn't offer enough money, and so they left, right? And there was this, and then there's this gap of here's a group of folks that were trained. The ones that got trained left, and then there was nobody to train these folks when it went away. Josh, sadly, that role of being a boss or leader. I love the thing years ago because I've worked for both, right? What's the difference in a manager and a leader, right? Manager wants to light a fire underneath you, and a leader lights a fire inside of you. I hope I'm that leader. At the same point, I've seen people that they got promoted because of seniority, or they got promoted for they were not skilled to be managers.
Right.
They were skilled to or leaders, or they were promoted strictly because of a seniority level, or sadly in our industry, some of it's been around. Well, who do you know, or who? What pictures do you have of people, right? And I hate to say it, but that's happened. And so, what ends up happening on our end is we end up getting that texts that are, they've got a homegrown knowledge, but we haven't invested into them the way we need to. And it's a rampant problem, I think, in our industry, to say the least. I think there's some things like C has got fast. You've got we lost Bear apparently. We've got there's something happening in South Carolina that we're doing. The local ASIS chapter started with one of the local community trade colleges to start training up low voltage techs. And I remember, I guess it applies well here. Somebody once said, "What's the difference in an alarm installer and a low voltage electrician?" An alarm installer, when the panel blows, they walk out to the truck, get another one, and put it on, and it blows, and they go walk back out to the truck and put another one on, and they keep that process up until they run out of panels. Low voltage electrician goes, "Crap, what happened the first time? Let's go figure this out." I think today we have a lot more of the alarm panel guys than we do electricians. And I think but I still, talking with a number of the techs I've talked with, there's a desire that they want to be this electrician. They don't want to just be the alarm guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've seen that tenfold, man. The last company I was with, I PM'd 9 technicians. I PM'd over 9 technicians that were national. And every one of them, when you really got talking to them and got them past that 15 minutes of they think they're having to, defend their ass because something blew, they want to be better. They want to know more. They're ready for it. You just got to get them there and then actually give it to them. Because if you get them there and you don't give it to them, they just get this burned mentality of like, that's management.
Yeah.
So they don't want to work hard on the next job. Huh?
Yeah, I was going to say, dangling that carrot and then not following through is detrimental, because I've worked for many companies where, hey, if you work this hard, you get these, certifications will make you a superintendent or a PM. They get there and they're like, well, you know what, you're too good to take you out of the field currently. And then they just keep delaying. And that's what burns people.
Go somewhere else. Yeah.
Yep.
I know that feeling.
Well, now John works for himself.
That remark. Not that I'm still a little, hurt about that one, but yeah.
Well, we are at an hour and 2 minutes. I do want to get in, quick. We have ISC coming up in a couple weeks. Unfortunately, Bear won't be there. I'm sad to see that, and Josh, I guess, is not going either. But I will be there. John will be there. John's got an event.
Yeah. It's almost, I think we're actually oversold, but we're waiting on a couple of sponsors. Josh, Bear, I'd actually hope to see you there and meet you in person. So, well, crap, next time. Josh, I will be in Columbus probably sooner than later. So,
look me up.
I will definitely do that. No, we're doing, so Chris Wilson and myself started, it actually started over a LinkedIn post about personal goals in 2023. One of mine was get my WSET certification in wine. I've done my first one. I'm heading for my second one here after ISC West. And we decided to put on a wine and security event because he and I both have a passion for wine and a passion for education and a passion for the security industry. And so we put one on in 23, sold it out 3 different times, had a wait list. We missed last year because of the concert. This year we decided, heck or high water, we're going to get it done. And so we are at the Win at Le Cave at the Win. It is a ticketed event. We do have sponsors. Like I said, I think we're oversold.
I got my ticket.
But we're also going to have a wait list, and if we can get through, it's going to be networking elevated. We're looking really excited to this. Influencers and decision makers in the same room to to have education around wine. We're actually having a sommelier come in. We're going to pair food with some high-end wines. He's going to give 10, 15 minutes worth of training around the wine, right? Let's train people around why this wine is going to taste exactly the way it does. And then let's have great conversations. And so we're sponsored by, to be nice to all of our folks, Elitech, Tanlock, Door Hardware Nerds, Honeywell. I missed Dell Technologies and Mobile Communications of America. And we are really hoping that this is not the second time you see this, that this is going to be a yearly thing at ISC West and maybe other places. So if you're not there this year, maybe next year.
Sweet.
Absolutely. I see Roger chimed in. I love Roger, and I loved his podcast. So yeah, I'm disappointed I won't get to meet you this time around, but hopefully be at the next one. Hopefully be at GSX as well.
And Charles Johnson said he'll be there. And then, kind of the last topic here, I know we're over time, but I really wanted to get this in there. I don't know if you guys have thought about it at all. The vision for Deadbolt is to kind of, do things differently. And eventually, within the next 5 years, hopefully we're looking to start our own kind of, conference, not your typical, button up conference, but something a little bit more casual. What kinds of things would you like to see at, something that's different?
Race cars.
Slip and slide?
Reduce
Slip
security
and slide?
and race cars slip and slide.
Yeah.
That feels like we may have to
I'm not
increase
feeling that
our
one, Bear.
insurance.
Sorry. 46, you're going to be 47. I don't need to get a broken hip over this.
Oh, my goodness. You are my age. I'm 46
I am
as
your
well.
age, the gray hair.
Okay. I'll think of something else. Hold on.
Hey, Josh, the race car thing, right? Doing access to an event a couple years ago here in South Carolina at the BMW Raceway.
With
There's
the Experience Center, yeah, and then
Experience Center.
Porsche's got one in Atlanta. I think
they've got one in Talladega as well. Actually, the one in Talladega, we drove through there a couple years ago. It is attached to the world's largest private collection motorcycle museum. Guy has over 17,000 motorcycles in the museum, privately held, and he's got a design center now that Ducati uses to design all their motorcycles as well. So just outside of Talladega, definitely something to think of. Dominic, as we talk about the techs, right? As you're growing this, not only for the leadership and the CEOs, but things that the technicians.
Yeah.
What are they? Something that is laid back and allows them to, not put on that hat of, okay, I've got to walk into an alarm panel and everything's beeping and screaming and all that. So I don't know.
No, that's definitely kind of, I was hoping somebody would say that. Definitely something geared more towards technicians and, even, having some kind of like technician rodeo, install show off kind of deal, competition, I think would be pretty cool. Something
you are from
more
Texas,
geared towards.
So you brought up rodeo.
Yeah. I was also going to say I'm just down the street from the Texas Motor Speedway as well. So there's race cars.
I said a racetrack, not a donut. If it goes around in circles, now it's just a go-kart. I don't know what that is. Is that Ricky Bobby?
Yeah.
That's a good movie. Was it not a documentary? Nah, I've tried, man. I can't do ovals. It bores me. I think ovals ruined IndyCar when they split. IndyCar was the big, I got all the F1 stuff back here, but, IndyCar was massive when I was a kid. And then you had the one, IRL just did ovals and Champ Car just did road courses. And, the right one is not the one that won. Too many ovals, but no shade. They're cool cars. I like cars regardless. So,
well, we got a shout out from Don on LinkedIn. Keep on keeping on, guys, he said. All right. Well, with that, I think we're good. Thanks for joining us. We have another live stream next Tuesday from 4 to 5 with Terry Conlon. We'll talk about SEPTED. That's going to be a really cool one to join. And and then we got ISC in a couple weeks. See you guys in person. All right. See you guys.